Welcome to the NACIC World Podcast. The objective of the NACIC World Podcast is to uplift, inspire, motivate, and to encourage personal growth and introspection. The human spirit is a flame that can be neglected, ignored, and covered up, but it can also be nurtured, nourished, and fanned to create a mighty fire. The NACIC World Podcast, fan the flame of your spirit. Here is your host, RJ.
Welcome back, and it's so nice to be with you once again on NACIC World Podcast. During 1996, after over 15 years in secure employment as a teacher and in the corporate business world, I left to start my own small consulting business. In my last position in the corporate world at an international oil company, I functioned as a corporate social investment manager responsible for 3 of the provinces in South Africa. At that time, and still today, many people ask me why I had decided to move from a reputable international company to, sort of basically nothing. Some people actually spoke behind my back and said that I suffered psychological damage. I still remember what I heard people were saying in Afrikaans, or local language. Sy plaat het geskuif. That's local for he is psychologically damaged. You know, as an employee of this leading international oil company, I enjoyed all the benefits of working for a big and leading oil brand. But then I decided to start my own consulting small business. In the beginning, I wasn't sure myself if I made the right decision. After all, I was responsible for big projects with big budgets. I had passionate and dedicated colleagues, and I worked with inspiring leaders in my industry. But I still stepped down from my role as a regional manager, to the surprise of my friends and colleagues. What drove my leap into the relative unknown was my desire to explore the world outside of the corporate environment, to create something and to make a difference if I could. Now, it generally is accepted that 80% of small businesses fail within the first year. And and being an entrepreneur, said the first rule is it's okay to fail. So over the past few years, since then, I have launched quite a few small businesses on my own. Some, I must be honest, has failed miserably, and some are still going. Whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. That is a quote by Dr. Napoleon Hill in the book Think and Grow Rich. To put this quote into context for you, let me remind you of the Wright brothers. The Wright brothers believed in their flying machine when others said it was impossible. Right? And now millions of people are flying in airplanes every day, and nobody gives it a second thought. Their belief was based on thousands of hours of research and study. It took more than belief to invent the airplane. The secret ingredient was action, also known as work. They worked on their invention for years, and they crashed hundreds of times. But eventually, what they conceived and believed was achieved. So this quote, whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve, was my slogan. And today my topic is Think Big.
NACIC World Podcast, broadcasting all over the world. You are listening to NACIC World Podcast. If you are serious about making money online from home, then visit smm-enterprisesonline.com. smm-enterprisesonline.com.
What does it really mean to think big? If you have something valuable in mind, a service to offer, an idea to develop, then you owe it to yourself and to others to increase its scope. Why settle for anything less than the full potential of what you can do with it? But thinking big needs, first of all, vision. To think big, you need to see big. It needs courage. Like they say, nothing ventured is nothing gained. It requires a thick skin. If what you have in mind is all worth doing, then others will express doubts about it along the way. The fact is, when you have a strong enough vision, the courage to take care of itself. When you can see, hear, and feel your vision, then you simply have to pursue it, however crazy it might seem to others. Now more than ever, it's easy to believe that there is no limit to how far we can think. Visualizing the future, not with the limitations of today, but with the possibilities of tomorrow, is a great source of mental power. It redirects our energy to find solutions instead of worrying about our problems. The ability to think big is the first step to break out of our bubble of self-imposed limits, to channel our energies, to explore a bigger and better future, and to map out the path ahead to make it possible. Thinking big is not daydreaming or imagining a beautiful future. It is a mental practice that allows us to take control over our own life. Learning how to think big can shift us from being prisoners of our mind to finding freedom in our thoughts.
NACIC World Podcast, broadcasting all over the world. You are listening to NACIC World Podcast. Are you interested in doing an online tourism business course? Visit tourismbusinessonline.com, tourismbusinessonline.com.
So how do we develop this habit of thinking big? Firstly, it starts with a vision, as I indicated earlier. You start with your vision, the why. To think big, you need to see big. When you think big and imagine your future self, don't start with what. Ask why. What do I want and why do I want it? Once your why is clear, your vision is clear, why you do what you do, your what will find its way to be in harmony with your why. You know, your what you want. Starting with why will trigger emotion that will push your visualization from imagination to the reality of your purpose. So that's the first habit to develop, your vision. Start with your vision. Secondly, action. Take that first step. It might be scary. You don't need a plan initially. What you really need is momentum. You know, the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The first step is crucial. It's crucial to put your thinking into action, to not waste time in creating a perfect plan to get started, to not let your fears push you back, and to feel the energy that comes from seeing things in action. Don't overthink. Define a few steps as you see in the moment. Pick the one that aligns best with your strengths and just go and do it. And thirdly, you need to be consistent, be deliberate. You know, nothing big ever comes to life without being intentional. It's doing work even when no one is watching, when you don't feel like it, or when your mind tries to trick you into distractions. Putting in small effort, consistently, making tiny progress every day may seem insignificant in the moment, but its benefits compound over time. Consistency and deliberate practice not only builds the momentum and helps you push forward, it acts as a medium to experiment, try new ideas, and carve out a path with a maximum potential. Consistency and deliberate practice will keep your thoughts aligned with the future it envisions.
You are listening to NACIC World Podcast. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. Firstly, it's free. Secondly, there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Thirdly, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. Fourthly, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Lastly, it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Thinking big doesn't end with a visualization of a better future. It's rather the beginning of commitment to think right every step of the way. In order to think big, you must think from the perspective of having no limitations and no fears. It is as though life is conspiring in your favor, breaking down walls and obstacles that are standing in your way, thus releasing your unlimited potential to develop the habit of thinking big, acting big, and doing bigger things than you ever thought were possible. Thinking big is a habit that we naturally grow and develop over time. It is a habit that allows us to stretch our imagination and expand our personal potential. It's not going to be easy. You might fail, falter, and even lose confidence along the way. But with every bump, bruise, or scrape, you will have gained knowledge and experience to continue making you stronger and better. If need be, find a mentor, someone who you respect, admire, and trust to help you, guide you along the way. Now that you've listened to this podcast, the next step is to take action. Prepare yourself by exhibiting persistence, focus, initiative, and a desire to learn. These are the key pieces you will need to think big. That brings us to the end of this episode. Please keep on fanning the flame of your spirit.
Please like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and podcast platforms. Send your emails to podcast@nacicinchina.com. NACIC World Podcast is broadcasted twice weekly, every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Beijing time. Until next time, please stay safe and be blessed. Till we meet again.